A lot of positives to take away from Mikel Arteta, but the reality is that this was hugely important for this step as Pep Guardiola and company looking for, 5 out of the last 6 years to lift another Premier League trophy.
The mentality of this team, I've said for a long time, offensively, they are not there. Is that because the players aren't of required quality? Is that because of the way the manager sets them up, defence first? I think in this game it doesn't quite bear fruit because they were very offensive and pressed really high. But again, Danny, across the season, if they don't end up champions, I wonder how much the Arteta mentality, which has got them there, is going to prevent them from breaking the glass ceiling, as it were.
Whatever big job specific to teams playing in Champions League, teams in that upper echelon of Europa League, that's the next step for Iraola to establish himself amongst the elite. And I could see him taking a job in the next 3 or 4 years. And if he does well, returning with a much, much bigger club in the Premier League somewhere down the line.
Well, hello, everybody. It's the Week in the Tackle podcast, the podcast where we get together on a weekly basis and tackle things from the world of football and or soccer that we thought were interesting. I'm Tom Rennie. Alongside me is MLS legend, top broadcaster, and a man who won biggest forehead in Salt Lake 3 years in a row. It is Mr. Brian Dunny, Harry Maguire Dunseth. Hello, buddy. All right.
I would just like you to know, once upon a time, I could really jump high, and I was really strong in the air. Because I learned within the very first training session in my first day as a pro for the New England Revolution, I was covering Alexi Lawless, and I went up for a header, and he literally bowed me. I think I still have like a cracked skull in the back.
Ugh.
And he goes, "Put your fucking elbows up." Sorry, Tim. And I go, "Indeed. Yes."
Isn't that what Canadians say? Isn't that a hockey thing? Put your elbows up. Is that a hockey thing?
Chicken wings. You know what I like to do is I'd like to jump, and when I go up the back, I'd like climb the guy's back to win the header. I'd imagine like this was taco meat, and his head and the neck was like a hard shell, and I just give him a good old flying taco.
The trouble is with that, though, that sometimes when you be a bit of a Gabriel Dunsethery character, sometimes you come up against Erling Haaland and
you get away with it.
You get away with it, but still don't win that battle or the war.
Terminology would be that my flying taco would be deemed not to be excessively aggressive and or violent.
Yeah,
I
sure.
still don't understand.
It's only headbutting it.
You can just grab a guy's ponytail straight red. That crosses some line, but then all of a sudden, like giving a little Glaswegian kiss, like that
That's
doesn't.
fine.
Yeah,
no worries.
Why would we add intent? Why would we add that to our curriculum of words? That I don't know. If you and I are sitting there and we're like, blah, 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 blah,
hey,
I give that one.
Did you steal that other boy's scrunchie? Is that what you did? Right. Suspended. Out of school. You're never allowed to come back here again. Did you headbutt him? Oh, that's fine. Come back to class.
They missed.
You know, that's basically what
I didn't get any blood off. Good on Erling Haaland, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
For all, by the way, that was
yes and no.
It was a great battle. It was a great battle.
We're getting ahead of ourselves.
Yeah, those two were going at each other. But at least Erling Haaland doesn't go to ground like a softie.
If someone headbutts me, I'm going down screaming blue murder. And I don't just mean on a football pitch. I mean in like Tesco. And also, just in case we do another version of who's got the biggest forehead in Salt Lake, it's probably me, isn't it, frankly? You just notice after a while it takes longer and longer to wash your face, as Harry Hill once said. Anyway, I want to talk about Arsenal Man City for most of the show today, which we will. I do want to talk a bit about the psychology of the late goal after what happened at Tottenham this weekend, which was legitimately jaw-dropping. We'll try and squeeze in some Chelsea meltdown. Want to ask you about Iraola being replaced by Marco Rose at Bournemouth, but really the Iraola question is what is interesting to me, and the Messi Harlem Globetrotters tour continues. So a lot to squeeze in the 45 minutes we have got together. And also, I've got to say to people, if you are subscribing as a podcast to this program on Spotify or Apple, thank you, by the way, to our new listeners in Denmark this week who put us in the top 40 of soccer podcasts in Denmark. I don't know why or how, but we see you and appreciate you, so thank you. Is that Danish? Is that some Danish?
Hey do in Swedish, I believe, is hello. So
okay, so you're just doing a different language then?
Scandinavian. I mean, like Danish, Norwegian, Swedish.
Why are you upsetting the Danes? The Danes and the Swedes.
Very close in terms of
the Danes
language.
And Swedes have hated each other. This
Finnish?
is like it's like a USA, Mexico, England, France thing. Yeah. It's like I was like, oh, thanks to our new French listeners, and you just went, hello to our new English listeners. Bonjour. Come on, bud. Come on, help me out here. We got in the top 40 in Denmark, and you're fucking this up. Sorry, Tim. Anyway, if you're subscribing as a podcast, we are available on YouTube as well. We know for a fact that people listen to the podcast and are not subscribed on Spotify. So please do that on YouTube, on Apple, on Spotify, all over. Subscribe everywhere. Tell your friends. Thank you for being a subscriber. Right. Let's get to this big game this weekend, which we have trailed for weeks and months. It's been a title decider in many ways going into the weekend. And this Monday morning, I sort of feel like it has been decided. We'll get your take on it. But overall, Dunny, having called the game at the weekend, I thought it was a fantastic game of football. I thought Arsenal got a lot right in this game and maybe deserved, in inverted commas, more than they actually got, which of course was nothing. But I keep going back to it on WrestleMania weekend. And I said this to you all the time. We played some comments from a podcast you and I did a couple of years ago, last week on the show. To be the man, you've got to beat the man. And in this instance, they had to draw the man. And they've got themselves into a position where they had to get something, and Arsenal failed. That's some headlines. What'd you make to it?
Yeah, listen, it was an incredible game. It was an incredible game. It was, top billing. I think it lived up to all expectations and hopes. I thought that Mikel Arteta and Arsenal, as we kind of dig into moments, there wasn't a lot between these two teams. I think also when you talk about decisions and starting 11s and formations and comparing, contrasting players, there's always going to be some semblance of a debate. I think ultimately, I don't know if I can say that the better team won, but I can say that it was obviously incredibly important, not only for Pep Guardiola, but for Manchester City, understanding Wednesday on the road at Burnley, which has historically been a huge, in terms of the positive goal contributions. When you think about what's really separating 3 points plus 1 goal differential right now in favor of Liverpool, that could be negated. That could be the determining factor when it's all said and done in this Premier League title race. And the importance of understanding, and again, going back, now back-to-back wins in 2.5 weeks' time in the EFL Cup final and now in the Premier League. Arsenal didn't have to be perfect. Man City has to be perfect. But as I say that, I tried to cultivate and arc that conversation, and that was pre-understanding that they're going to face Atletico Madrid in this next semifinal, away and then home. And by the way, Newcastle at home, away against Atleti, home against Fulham, home against Atleti, and then away at your West Ham. So it's not easy. It's going to be extremely
West Ham
complicated.
looks quite nasty now as well with the relegation race as it is.
Yeah, I think every margin is going to be debated. I don't listen. Would Calafiori and Urian Timber have made this back line stronger? Possibly. But then if I admit that, then I'm going against everything I've been saying, which are all the positives about Zubamendi coming in, Mosquera coming in, and Nkapie coming in, all of these things, important factors. I mean, Madueke last summer, Eze in this fall, the fact that you elected to go with Kai Havertz over Gyökeres at this stage of the season, all Odegaard being on the field is just makes them different. So a lot of positives to take away from Mikel Arteta, but the reality is that this was hugely important for this step as Pep Guardiola and company looking for 5 out of the last 6 years to lift another Premier League trophy.
Yeah, and I think that Burnley game in midweek, like people will probably hear this on Wednesday, or many people will, and that's a squash match, to use another wrestling term. I think if they don't beat them 7-0, I'd be absolutely stunned. This Burnley team are atrocious and are deservedly, once again, getting relegated this season. I mean, I want to go with some moments of the game with you and see what you think about all of them, but just another quick macro point, which I want to get your reaction to as well, which is, like, we have had so many conversations about Arsenal now, and there's not much else to say on it beyond the proof is in the pudding that we are now eating. And the conversation that I've been pushing for a long time, to go back to Ric Flair, is it's a mentality issue with Arsenal. And I called it on the show earlier, which I don't think is quite right. I called it a loser mentality, but I think that's wrong. I think it's more a not being able to win mentality, maybe a winner's mentality. But I'll try and find something kind of better for that moving forward. And by that, I mean the thing we've spoken about a couple of times from Carabao Cup final onwards, the ability to start dominating a game when required, the ability to go up against Bournemouth, treat it like another day at the office and get that job done, the ability to to take control of a match like the Carabao Cup final, where City had that switch and for 45 minutes were irresistible and would have beaten anybody. The ability to get the wins against the likes of Wolverhampton Wanderers and Brentford and one or two others this season that, look, City have stumbled too, which is why it's so close. And if they've beaten Burnley at the weekend, it'll be goal difference that puts them above Arsenal. However, this is who you're up against. You can't afford to drop points all season in games like that. And so many of those games where they have dropped points, and again, the standard's impossibly high. It's impossibly high what Klopp's Liverpool did and what Arne Slot's Liverpool did in recent times to beat Guardiola's Man City with their incredible resources and their incredible manager and their ability to go, you know what, we've got some issues in two positions. Let's spend $500 million fixing it in any given window. They can sign Omar Marmoush last January and then toss him off by the following year, right? So it's hard to go up against that, but that is the challenge. And I wonder how much the mentality being set by Mikel Arteta, it is a bit linked in, like Liam Rosinha, in a lot of times. But again, if it works, that's absolutely fine. But like the mentality of this team, I've said for a long time, offensively, they are not there. Is that because the players aren't of required quality? Is that because of the way the manager sets them up, defence first? I think in this game, it doesn't quite bear fruit because they were very offensive and pressed really high. But again, Danny, across the season, if they don't end up champions, I wonder how much the Arteta mentality, which has got them there, is going to prevent them from breaking the glass ceiling, as it were.
Yeah, the only analogy that I could use in my own walk of life is after I retired, I started messing around and doing those Tough Mudders. There's those competitions where, you're running 12 miles, but in between you're doing all of these different kind of like micro events within the bigger event. And I can remember the very first one I went into, I was so unsure of my preparation because I didn't know how to properly, hit every single bullet point because I'd never been there before. I've never done it before. And I think that's kind of similar for Mikel Arteta and Arsenal. It's not that they're not good enough. It's just they haven't gotten over the line. And once they get over the line, all of these highly experienced, different maker, iconic type of players that have been involved in the Premier League over the years, they all say the same thing. Once you win it, then you know what it takes. But until you win it, you have no idea. And so we talk about all these moments. We talk about bottle jobs and we talk about confidence and we talk about style of play. And is it the players? Is it Mikel Arteta? Is it the coaching staff? Is, putting your head on a ball and putting everybody's arms on their shoulders and who's the quickest around the field? Hey, let's hold hands and light a light bulb. All of these things, like you just try to get there. Let's play TikTok videos. Let's play, You Never Walk Alone and recreate Anfield and all the, like he's grasping. And it's not grasping. I say grasping at straws, but he's creating step by step, incrementally, the idea of what it's going to take. And until they do it, that's the challenge. But right now, 3 points separate. The game against Burnley is going to be huge. Just one goal, plus 37 to plus 36 goal differential. And effectively, if Man City beats Burnley, they'll be sitting on the same exact record: 21 wins, 5 losses, 7 draws. Very quietly in these last 2 months, Arsenal has started incrementally dropping. And in the past 2 weeks, when you go from a 9-point lead and you lose, probably 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks, when you go from a 9-point lead and you lose the first of availability of the quad to Man City in the FL Cup final, then you're taking a couple of big slaps in the face. So couple of trophies, a Premier League trophy and a Champions League trophy still on the line, where very quietly Man City can now still do the trouble after being knocked out of Real Madrid in the Champions League.
Let's go through a few moments in this game, because there's about 4 that I wanted to get your view on and have a bit of a chat about. And let's start with something we spoke about last week. And go back to last week's episode. We're not clairvoyant. We don't have the sports almanac, but we kind of predicted exactly what was going to happen and who the star player was going to be. And the player we picked out was Rayan Cherki, following his just great personality we saw in the victory over Chelsea the previous week. And it's been a season bereft of magic. It's been a season bereft of mavericks. It's been a season bereft of individual talent. I think one of the reasons Arsenal are so unpopular with neutrals in an unfamiliar way to them, which I think has set off a lot of the fan base this year, is that the anti-football they have played, call it what you will, but people get my meaning when I say that, it turns people off. And not only that, it gets copied. And everyone's copying it. Everyone's doing long throws and corners and playing ugly and taking hours over this, that, and the other. And it's it's not enjoyable for people. And then when your team starts doing it, you think, yeah, okay, I'll make that concession because we haven't got the budget. But when Arsenal were doing it with a £100 million central midfielder, you're a bit like, I just don't know, because we all copied the champions. Do they have to? Yeah. And also, if it delivers no results, then what was the point of all of that? So, I think that's an interesting element in terms of why Arsenal aren't particularly popular. But like, going back to this game, they set up incredibly well, I think, and yet Rayan Cherki just sort of steps forward from this tactical or almost nervy encounter and just does this, like, give me the ball. Yeah. Give me the ball and let me take care of this. And I just thought that whole moment, the way he picks it up, the confidence, the technical ability, the dancing, the way it visually looked, the way he gets away from that sort of trailed out leg of the centre half to then pop it in the corner. I mean, that is why, Dunny, that hopefully, kids watching love football. We still pay to go and watch football. What people are going to remember from the forthcoming World Cup? Yeah. They won't remember the rigid formation of England. They'll remember, I don't know, if it ends up being Cole Palmer doing this amazing thing. That's what football is. And I think Cherki, as much as I hate to think of City as any sort of fairy tale, that was a fairy tale moment, I think, in a lot of ways.
Yeah, by the way, Cole Palmer, in the matches this season against Big Six teams, 0 goals, 0 assists.
In matches this season, full stop, mate. Terrible.
Palmer. Does he get to use that as his trademark? Do I have to trademark that? I don't know.
I don't know. We haven't got the money, mate.
Yeah, we don't. I withdraw.
We need a lot more listeners in Denmark or Sweden.
Or Norway.
If we can afford it.
Yeah, listen, by the way, did you see Rayan Cherki's little brother for Leon? Have you? I got to send it to you.
Cherki's brother?
So he's got a little brother, and he's creative. He's got kind of a long flowing fro. Like, his movement off the ball. Like, he has this move on social, and everyone's like, this is Rayan Cherki's brother. And he's going the sideline. This guy goes to ground. He's like done a pirouette.
I'm just watching it now.
On top of the ball. Okay. Like, if this is the Cherkis, I'm here for it. Because that guy, Rayan Cherki, he annoyed the living hell out of me watching Manchester United against Lyon a couple of windows ago, I guess now. And to see him, he's got the dark arts. He's got the manipulation. You can he's almost like Cantona-esque in that he's got this this kind of like nice little swagger to him, the way he carries himself. He puts his arms out like Raheem Sterling when he's got the ball on his left foot, and he's taking these baby touches, and all of a sudden, whoop, chop. Great little ball, like explosiveness. I just think he's going to be the guy that becomes this different new version of like the impact role that Kevin De Bruyne had for so many years at Manchester City. He's going to annoy the living out of Pep Guardiola. Sorry, Tim. Which is hilarious to watch because you just see Pep like, why? Like, what's he doing? The kick.
Why are you doing step overs right now? Why are you doing this?
Or he's on the ground like, and he's like this. Okay, like, doing all. I love it. I absolutely love it. No, he's a special player for a special moment. And watching, and when everyone's like, this is the opportunity for a breakout game. Well, it's back-to-back games where he's been outstanding. He's been outstanding for a while. He's going to do it different. He's going to be a different type of player, but different in a good way, because especially with Bernardo Silva leaving, with Phil Foden kind of having, Phil Foden's not. He's been
very bad.
He's been struggling to match the level. And last year was understandable because of injuries and whatever. And I still don't think, like, everyone's talking about Arsenal and the schedule and all this stuff. And I keep people, I'm like, what about Chelsea? And what in particular, what about Chelsea? And what about Manchester City? And thinking about the summer and the FIFA Club World Cup and effectively no preseason and all those things coming into play as well. There's a lot of weird cultural narratives there. Anyways, at the end of the day, massive 3 points. I loved the Dunseth 3. I love the margins. In a way, I really liked Anthony Taylor with allowing the game to be the game, because he very easily could have made sure that game didn't end with 11 versus 11 on the field.
Yeah, and I want to get back to the Gabriel bit in a second. Just one further bit on Rayan Cherki. I saw a couple of older videos of him, to go back to your point of when he was playing in Liga. He has been on the Guardiola diet, and how do we all get on the Guardiola diet? I get the feeling that Man City, if they win the league this season, it might be built on the fact that Pep Guardiola introduced Rayan Cherki to broccoli. Let's talk about my next favourite thing in football, which isn't broccoli or dieting.
Headbutts.
No, I want to get to that, but I want to talk about one of my favourite Twitter pages, which is when playing it out of the back goes wrong, which I absolutely love, which has got a great MLS one this weekend from the San Diego game against Salt Lake, which is excellent.
Oh, yeah, Diego Luna. Yeah,
Yes,
Duran
the Diego
Farid.
Luna goal, where they try and play it off the goalkeeper straight to Luna, 1 yard out, and just scores. It's very funny. Going back to Man City, we're still celebrating the goal, or the celebrations are going on, and we're talking about what's happening. I look up and it's 1-1. We just caught the goal. Like, I looked up at the exact moment Kai Havertz closed him down. Tell me how that happens. I mean, does he not see him? Is he too relaxed?
No,
It's so evident that he's there.
Yeah, he saw him, and this I'll tell you what, it doesn't dispel the conversation about Gini Donnarumma with the ball at his feet. There was a lot of talk about, well, he's not the type of goalkeeper for Pep Guardiola, and you just brought James Trafford in during the summer with the expectation he was going to be the number one. For whatever reason, Luis Enrique and PSG decided they were going in a different direction. Donnarumma has had some phenomenal moments this season in goal for Manchester City. That being said, this is kind of the descriptive complaint about Donnarumma when the ball's at his feet. Twofold. Number one, technically, is he good enough to be that player to maintain simple possession and build out? And the answer is 99.999% of the time, absolutely. But not just because of everything that was the game, not everything that was riding on the game, but also because you just had a phenomenal goal where almost the director and producer were caught in replay because they were showing the quality of the goal over and over and over. Credit to Kai Havertz. There's and again, I think this is lost on a lot of people. There's only so many forwards that'll run themselves into the ground.
Yeah.
And there's only so many forwards that'll recognize a moment to apply pressure. Because again, 99.99999% of the time, it's a worthless run because the attacking player is not going to get on the end of it. He might cause some pressure. He might allow the trickle-down effect underneath him to try to win the ball back on a secondary, a third, tertiary type of win. But it's usually a worthless run. That one paid significant dividends for Arsenal. And I was really intrigued to see how Man City was going to recover because I think we're still caught in this idea that it's the old Man City. This isn't the old Man City. This is a newer group of players that are trying to establish themselves psychologically to be able to compete for trophies on all fronts. So they responded really, really well. But the margins were thin. Margins were extremely thin throughout this match.
And a lot of Arsenal games this season have been decided on the margins, and this one didn't fall in their favour. Two other quick bits I wanted to get your opinion on, because we're a little bit pushed for time. I want to get to some other bits. But the winning goal from Erling Haaland, part of an ongoing battle with Gabriel. There were some Arsenal complaints that he was taking Gabriel's shirt off when the cross came in. But give us your thoughts on that, and also the play down the left-hand side from Doku O'Reilly and Jeremy Doku. I thought were both brilliant on the day.
Yeah, they really were. They really were. They've got two left-sided players that are just phenomenal. And by the way, remember, you can turn to Ait Nori, who is technically outstanding as well, should you want to go in a different direction. You know me. As a former center back, I loved battling with guys, especially big guys. I loved the wrestling matches. I loved the physicality. I love, we call it the Dunsethery, the dark arts, the manipulation of the opponent, it pinching armpit hair, thumbs and kidneys, thumbs and ribs. You do whatever it takes to offset. And Erling Haaland's size is only once in a while matched by a defender's physicality. And he and Gabriel have had some really elusive, fantastic battles. For as much as people are complaining about Erling Haaland's goal, you could probably complain about Erling Haaland having his undershirt completely torn up to his armpit. Minutes. I got no skin in the game. I'm not pro Arsenal. I'm not anti Arsenal. I'm not pro Man City. I'm not anti Man City. I just love these battles because you're making split-second decisions for two dudes that are 6'4", that are as strong as oxes, and it's just about momentum and it's about leverage. And throughout the course of that match, you could literally blow the whistle in either direction every single time the ball came in their vicinity. So I loved it. Again, as a neutral, I loved everything about it. The one thing I do think a line was crossed, and that was going to be Gabriel. When they go head to head, that's one thing. But when you when you give that little cock back, and that little thrust forward, I was waiting to see if VAR would send Anthony Taylor over the monitor. Again, we're going to do these things where we like try to pick out examples. I'm a Man United fan. Lisandro Martinez being sent off against Leeds United for grabbing the ponytail, the bun of Dominic Calvert-Lewin, I thought was ridiculous. I didn't think it would ever rise to the level of intervention and suggestion by VAR to head over to the monitor. I don't understand why there's still so many hands to the neck or faces that people get away with. But if you, there's no world in which you will ever convince me that Howard Webb or Anthony Taylor or even VAR on Twitter can quote this on Twitter and say the incident between Gabriel and Erling Haaland was, quote, deemed not to be excessively aggressive or violent.
Crazy.
Again, I'm not. And I've got proof right here, just for our Giorgio mug predictions. I've got Arsenal top of the table on Series 6. I have him. This isn't me hate watching Arsenal. I've got them as my predictive winner. I just don't get it. It's a red. I don't understand how that's not sent over. He knew what he was doing. The attempt was there. And good on Erling Haaland not to go to ground and feign injury, because that certainly was the idea of what he was trying to do, was give him a little Glaswegian kiss.
I mean, look, I agree completely. I just to build on it, like in commentary, we were just staggered that it wasn't reviewed. There's a bit where they're both pushing their heads against each other, and I think that's the bit that's fair game. The bit where he then goes to butt him, which he clearly does because he's pissed off because of what's happened. He evidently does it. He clearly does it. There's no argument about it. So for that not to be seen as excessively aggressive or violent, somewhat shocking. And also the addition to that is now Gabriel should be sent off in the game and get a 3-match ban, which should quite rightly affect Arsenal moving forward. And I take your point entirely on Erling Haaland. Didn't go down because that's how football used to be or whatever. It was stupid from Erling Haaland, frankly. You should have read the room, read the moment, gone to ground, holding his forehead, and then given a smile to the camera like Rayan Cherki would have done. But Gabriel should be writing a lovely thank you card to Erling Haaland this morning, which I doubt he will. Right, I do want to move on to some other bits because we're about halfway through our recording time, and we've got to talk a bit about Tottenham. We're about, as we record this, an hour or so away from the West Ham game against Crystal Palace, so we don't know what's happened there. So if you listen to this tomorrow after we record, then things may well have changed. But it's not necessarily about the Tottenham performance, which was marginally better, I think, than it has been in recent times. They went toe-to-toe with the good Brighton and got something from the game through a great moment of individual brilliance from Xavi Simons. But he massively celebrated that, which I thought was interesting. I'd love your view on whether it was an over-celebration. But from your career, Dunny, from playing and also working as a commentator as well, tell us a bit about the psychology of that late goal, that late blow, that late moment from Rutter, because it's so late in the game. It's more or less the last moment, the last chance, your first win of the calendar year. To blow it in that way, how damaging is that? And how do you get through the next day, 2 days, 3 days?
Yeah, and actually, I thought that De Zerbi's side, I thought they were pretty good. It was a fun game to watch. And credit to Brighton for getting that late goal. I don't know what's real or not anymore on social media, but I did enjoy the post that came across my purview that was that Tottenham has more yellow cards this season for scoring goals and ripping off jerseys in their celebrations that ended up being denied of either the full 3 points or were judged to be in an offside position. And they still got the yellow card. So I think it was 5, maybe 6 so far this season. Could be right, could be wrong, could just be malicious and just unsethery. I don't know. Anyways, great goal from Xavi Simons. Absolutely smacks the piss out of that. The finish was outstanding, and you thought that this was going to be the moment. I constantly, and I'm often talking about manufacturing moments. How do you manufacture moments of brilliance, or how do you just get yourself over the line? I was convinced that Tottenham had done so, even though my Tottenham Lunacy group chat had Headley hiding behind the couch, as one always does in the final minutes of a Spurs game. It's devastating, man. I mean, and listen, De Zerbi, he's done everything right so far. I mean, I say that in context, right? Because obviously we're not on the field.
Yeah, he's done
but
fine.
the images of taking the team out to dinner, that's going to be a buy-in for the most part.
I think Igor Tudor tried that as well, though, to be fair.
Yeah, but again, it's for the most part. I think a majority of these players already know De Zerbi from his time in the Premier League. That gives them a little bit more insight. They probably respect how he's handled the Mason Greenwood conversation publicly and or privately, because he seems to be a player's coach wherever you fall in line with that conversation. And then ultimately, I like the way I like his temperament in front of the camera, because you can tell he's no nonsense, but you can tell he's a player's coach. And I said this to you, I think, when he was named manager. Without being on the training ground with him, he's the type of personality that it's like magnetism. Like I would have wanted to play for a Roberto De Zerbi in terms of that accountability, the honesty, the passion. You can like feel it. Those are the type of guys that, for me, become leader amongst men. And I like those guys. That being said, it's going to be a challenge, man. Away at Wolves, away against Villa, Leeds United at home, away against Chelsea, home against Everton. He said, I believe we can win 5 games in a row. That theory is going to be tested because I think at a bare minimum, he's got to, I don't think he needs 15 points, but he probably needs 12 or so points out of what's remaining.
You think 12 points from where they are on 31?
I do.
I'm not sure that's right. I mean, I think
especially if Crystal Palace loses at home to if West Ham gets 3 points, I think they're absolutely going to need at least 12 just to make sure.
Well, to make sure, I think 12 would make sure. I think from where they are, they're going to need a minimum of 9 points. I think West Ham have got every chance of getting to 39. I think Leeds are well out of it. I think Forest with one more win would get to 39. I think that leaves you with the necessity of winning 3 of the 5 games remaining, and that is doable from those fixtures. I think Wolves is more of a gimme than people are giving it credit for.
Lose against Villa. Leeds right now? I don't know if
I think Leeds being safe, I would suggest they would beat Leeds.
At Chelsea?
Then there's a third that's required.
And then
but Chelsea, Chelsea look diabolical. I think the Everton game is winnable, the Chelsea game is winnable, the Leeds game is winnable, and the Wolves game I think is already won because Wolves are pathetic. So that sort of leaves you in that position. So look, it's in West Ham's hands currently. Tottenham will feel it shouldn't be, but I think the form of Leeds and Forest takes them totally out of it.
And by the way, Everton, that final game against Tottenham at home, Everton at Tottenham, that Everton could still be in the battle for Europe. I mean, that could be a huge one as well.
Yep, and we'll see how it plays out. The battle for Europe is massive right now. It could go all the way down to where Fulham are currently.
The final 2 spots, yeah.
A couple of other quick bits I wanted to get your view on. Firstly, just a word on the Chelsea form at the moment. The worst run of form in the Premier League right now of any team. Liam Rossini having a terrible time right now, and it's 4 defeats in a row. I thought they were fine enough against Man United to a degree, but I don't think they ever looked like they were going to be in the game. Cole Palmer, we discussed earlier, looks a shadow of his former self. You got the tantrum from Wesley Fofana as he went off. You had the statements of Enzo Fernandez. You've had
overblown.
Which is weird. They were massively overblown, and yet you got that weird 2-game suspension, which is odd. But Cucurella said something similar, but didn't get a 2-game ban.
He was on the bench, and then now he's not named captain. It's all unnecessary.
Weird. It's weird. And then just added to people that saw this. There was a BlueCo protest from Chelsea and Strasbourg fans offside who were just like, we don't want to be a hedge fund. Get out of our club. When that all comes together, you don't need a well-intentioned 41-year-old rookie manager trying to navigate through, do you? I mean, it just feels like everything is sort of coming together in a bad way for Chelsea right now. And one other bit to this, which I wanted to get your take on, was I was chatting to a Chelsea friend of mine the weekend, and he said, look at what's happened to Spurs this season. Look at what happened to Man United last season. He suggests that the way Chelsea are looking and the way they are going, that's the future for Chelsea. Big club in serious, quick decline, as opposed to a club who can make the climb back up again. What do you make of that?
I don't know if I'm that pessimistic. What I would say is I truly wonder behind the scenes, similar to Tottenham Hotspur and Daniel Levy and the departure of his leadership and obviously everything that's happened. I'm not suggesting that's the pathway, but I would wonder very quietly exactly what this looks like. What does it look like with Bowley and Igbali? What does it look like with the leadership and the board behind the scenes? Because you go back a couple of years ago, I'm not sure Pochettino, it was right to walk away from him with the way that he ended the season. I mean, obviously Enzo Maresca brought him a certain amount of success and allowed them to win the FIFA Club World Cup. But then his unceremonious departure because of conflict, irritation behind the scenes for whatever reason. Where I give them credit is they're doing it differently. And listen, I mean, we could be really meticulous and pick through and talk about where the money's coming from, where the investment is actually, where that money from the investment to buy the club is truly coming, because we're constantly playing the morality police. On top of that, they did something that was completely different in terms of how they went about building from the top to the bottom. Selling of the women's team, the offset and cost when it comes to the hotel, the blaming of what happened previous and quote unquote self-reporting with people that were previously involved in the club that were handing down any type of suspected fines and or taking away the ability to sign players during the winter and or the summer. And through all of this, at least having a plan. Whatever the Strasbourg project looks like, they felt like Liam Rossinier was always going to be a viable option, and probably someone that they turned to earlier rather than later, what they expected. But with Enzo Maresca leaving, the biggest criticism I could put at their doorstep is, why would you give him a 6-year deal? Why would you give a 41-year-old untested manager a 6-year deal? With Liam Rossinier, incredibly intelligent. From a psychological standpoint, you can feel what he's trying to do. He comes off more Mikel Arteta-esque, more Ruben Amorim-esque. I was really impressed with kind of the opening couple of weeks of how he went about handling his business in front of the microphone. I remember saying to you, once results turn, he's going to be in trouble, because people are going to feel like they're being talked at as opposed to talked to. And even now, bringing up reference points of, hey, I've never complained about being a manager that came in January, but historically you're given a preseason, but I'm not going to use that as you're using it as a data point. You sound a lot like Arne Slot, who does it constantly. So, with this run of form, the 5-2 loss at PSG then led to the loss against Newcastle, that led to the loss at PSG, then led to the loss at Everton, that creates the win at Port Vale in FA or the Cup. Then the loss against Manchester United. Now you're at Brighton, home against Leeds United, FA Cup. Then you have Forest away against Liverpool. Your level on points with Brentford, Bournemouth, and Brighton is just a single point behind you. If they finish outside of a spot of Europe, financially, that's going to be another huge hurdle that they were not projecting. They want that Champions League money. They want to be able to continue to evolve this roster. And this will make things, if they don't, I guess for me, my question is has Liam Rossinier done enough from the outside looking in to be the manager of Chelsea at the start of next season? It's not, is he good enough? It is there better managers out there? And if that's the answer, it's similar to Michael Carrick. Absolutely, there are better managers that will be available than what Liam Rossinier can bring to the table. But again, it just makes it, you don't know what you're doing, kind of ha moment if they do make that change of Liam Rossinier, even though they owe him for another 5.5 years. That leaves that open to constant criticism, and they've done nothing to really offset that coming off the FIFA Club World Cup win in the summer.
That's going to be a completely sewn-up contract, though. I mean, the 6-year thing, there's going to be so many get-out clauses and payoff moments and all sorts of things. That's just not worth the paper. But
still, why would you do it? Why would you do it?
I mean, I guess they were trying to project confidence in a young manager, but there's no scenario
Could
even
you
if it goes
imagine
well.
his representatives? Could you imagine, like, his agent probably going in, like, yeah, can we get a 2+1 like type of contract? And they're like, what do you think about 6 years? Like,
yeah, I mean, he essentially was just transferred over from another department. Like, I doubt very much there was too much negotiation. His agent's probably Igbali or something like that. The way it looks, it's ridiculous. Look, I don't see it lasting. I don't see there being a great deal of respect for what he's doing there. And I feel like Chelsea fans, they expect to be top of the pile. And even like Bournemouth, I mean, that's what I want to segue into now quickly. Andoni Iraola has decided he's leaving, which is a shame, because if they qualify for Europe, I'd love to have seen him do one more year, but I'd suggest the athletic club job is probably sewn up, which is why he's going to make that move. We'll find out together, but I think that's what's going to happen. If not, Chelsea and Newcastle and loads of clubs should be on the phone to Iraola right now. They've immediately moved for Marco Rosa, who's going to be in charge next season, so that's sewn up already. But just a word on Iraola, like, what do you make to him going to Athletic Club at this stage of his career? He's a legend there, and so, like, he's always wanted to coach there. He's told us that directly that's the only other club he'd want to manage in the world. However, surely clubs are testing the waters here because Athletic Club are not going to win La Liga. They're never going to do that. They might win Copa del Rey. We wish them well. They might win a European trophy, but they're never going to challenge for the title. Here's a manager who could challenge for titles, I think, on paper at least. So what do you make to that? Either giving Bournemouth one more year or going to a club that can actually challenge at the very, very top?
Yeah, listen. I think he's earned every right to walk away from Bournemouth in the job that he's done. I know that when the turtleneck was out in the beginning of his tenure at Bournemouth, there was a certain someone here on our show that was somewhat malicious.
Tim. It was Tim.
It was Tim. F***ing Tim. Sorry, Tim. And he's done an amazing job. I mean, listen, look at the turnover. Look at the back line in the midfield, and then losing Semenyo in January, and yet they're still like they just next man up. Now, I don't know how much that's how much more credit we need to give to the decision makers and the squad builders behind the scenes. But the reality is you've lost a lot of great players. And unlike some of, Oliver Glasner and the Crystal Palace situation, you never heard Iraola come out publicly and slag off his bosses and the decision makers behind the scenes. So I think he's earned that opportunity. I was talking with Marcos Taboas, our producer on Counterattack, about Real Madrid. And intrigued, but not sold. If you said to me, should the leadership group of Manchester United kick the tires on Iraola? 100%. Yeah. I'm not saying he's got to provide a PowerPoint, but get to know the human being because the performance has been impressive. I obviously Athletic Club with Valverde leaving an announcement at the end of the season, that makes a lot of sense, in Basque Country and being back home. But wherever you linked him to, I wouldn't be surprised, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Whatever big job specific to teams playing in Champions League, teams in that upper echelon of Europa League, that's the next step for Iraola to establish himself amongst the elite. And I could see him taking a job in the next 3 or 4 years. And if he does well, returning with a much, much bigger club in the Premier League at somewhere down the line.
Last bit for today is about your forthcoming week and the weekend that's just gone. The Lionel Messi Haaland Globetrotters tour continues at the Rapids this weekend in front of 75,000, where he was once again a pivotal player for the managerless Inter Miami. And you'll be covering them this week. Give us your thoughts on that. And this attendance, massive.
75,000 and almost a similar number for the NWSL launch a couple of weeks ago. The challenge, and I said this on the show with Keith Costigan earlier today on SiriusXM, was, the challenge is that there's a narrative that's been created by the Cronkies about not spending for the Rapids. And Porg Smith has done a good job of amassing a lot of talent from around the league to make it a competitive team in the Western Conference. And Matt Wells, so far, coming over as assistant for Tottenham Hotspur, has done a very good job, getting his feet wet and getting acclimated to all the variables in MLS. And I thought they put in a really good performance. But again, at the end of the day, it was Lionel Messi slaloming through and kind of Ari and Robin-esque type of goal from the corner of the 18-yard box. Far post, great finish. So footballing town, how do you get more fans out to Commerce City to watch Colorado Rapids play? I had friends that were in LA. They went to the Coliseum to watch Messi take on LAFC. They were so impressed by LAFC that they ended up going to multiple LAFC games at BMO Stadium. And that's part of this financial layout for teams in Major League Soccer. When you get Lionel Messi in town, like the state of Utah and Salt Lake City in particular on Wednesday night, it's their first time having Lionel Messi and Inter Miami in Salt Lake City. So they're going to go all out and try to take advantage of it. And, I've had a similar conversation about Liga MX sides where you talk about Club America, you talk about Chivas de Guadalajara, you talk about Tigres, you talk about Monterrey. How do you take a Liga MX fan base and turn them into MLS fans? Well, you put on a show. And that's going to be the emphasis for Pablo Mastroeni, Diego Luna and company against Lionel Messi and Miami on Wednesday. Then on Friday, I fly to Miami. I've got Inter Miami against New England Revolution. I think that's the third game in the new stadium in Miami. So I'm really, really excited about looking at that and checking that out. Really impressive performances this weekend. I thought that San Jose completely taking apart a demolition of a second 45 minutes on the road to LAFC. Bruce Arena doing Bruce Arena things. And if you're a New England Revolution fan, you've got to be looking at Bruce with admiration and then disgust for how that went sideways. Brian Smetzer and the Seattle Sounders absolutely flying after a phenomenal second leg performance against Tigres and against Liga MX side Tigres in CONCACAF Champions Cup. Heavy rotation, missing 3 center backs, and got a 4-1 win against St. Louis City. And it was great to see Edward Leuven step back on the field for the first time for St. Louis after the passing of his wife about a month ago. And then ultimately, some interesting disappointments when you're talking about, listen, we know who the best in the West are, but Sporting Kansas City, St. Louis City, Atlanta United, Philly, Portland, Orlando, and Columbus. Talk about preseason injuries. Talk about players, international signings, getting their paperwork done. Right about now is where the rubber meets the road. We're about 7-8 weeks in. You've already made 3 changes. Oscar Pereira loses his job in Orlando. Roberto Donadel loses his job in Montreal. Javier Mascherano, for whatever reason, is out in Miami. I am of the belief that May, I think it's 25th, is the break for MLS. I think this is going to be the equivalent of the Bundesliga going into the winter break. I think it's going to be a red Christmas. This will be a red summer. I'm still working. I'm workshopping.
Just sackings everywhere.
Oh, I think if you're going to do it, you got to do it.
Because you're going to give yourself bloodbath.
You're going to give yourself 3 weeks to get a new manager in with a group of players that primarily are not going to be participating in the World Cup. You got to take advantage of that. And I think there's going to be some tough decisions that need to be made in Major League Soccer heading into that break.
Do you hear anything on Inter Miami or Mascherano, or whether he had a job, or whether someone's coming in, or they're going to keep caretaker until Red Wedding?
So Guillermo Hoyos is the footballing father of Lionel Messi, is what he's talked about. His time at Barcelona B, being involved La Masia, and so he and Messi. Plus, he's effectively been the architect of this team. Listen, there's the Athletic articles. There's been whispers and rumors. There's been conversations of conflict between players and the staff. At the end of the day, when you verbalize for personal reasons, it takes away the maliciousness. So I can understand manipulating the narrative. But it was the same thing with Tata Martino. When it's all said and done, in a weird way, I want to give credit to Javier Mascherano for standing on his own 2 feet, that if he needs to walk, he needs to walk. We knew the challenge was going to be, working with his old teammates. This is going to be a different year without Busquets and Alba. It looks different with Bertarami. He's starting to score a couple of goals. How do you still handle the dynamic of Luis Suarez being one of your really good friends and one of your teammates to now having to make decisions to not even play him in an MLS Cup final? And then ultimately, how do you create the right tactics for a group that needs to protect Lionel Messi? And they're scoring a ton of goals. They're conceding a ton of goals, but they're, for the most part, still winning. But I think there was probably a certain amount of pressure that was placed on Javier Mascherano after being knocked out by Nashville in CONCACAF Champions Cup, because we talked to Jorge Mas immediately following the game and lifting the MLS Cup trophy in Miami against Vancouver. And he made it very clear and evident that they wanted to win the regional championship and ultimately re-qualify for the FIFA Club World Cup in a couple of years' time. So we'll see what directions they go. Miguel Gallardo, who's been at River Plate and been over in the Middle East, he's been linked to it. I wouldn't be surprised if Javi Hernandez has had a conversation. But whether you're talking about the aspirations from the ownership group, the Rolodex of David Beckham, I could imagine that there's a lot of. I mean, they had Diego Alonso, who in the beginning of the club was named the best manager in Liga MX. I could see Jardinet, the manager of Club America, his tires being kicked. I don't think money's going to be an issue, but I think that the seal of approval has to come from Lionel Messi. I think a guy like Wilfred Nancy from Columbus Crew would be a really good, because when you talk about a guy that can manage personalities, manage kind of atmosphere and culture, and maybe has such an emphasis of possession and retaining possession with the ball, I don't see, even with what happened at Glasgow Celtic, why that wouldn't be a bad shout. So it'll be intriguing to see which direction they go.
We'll find out together, and Dunny will be right across it. We are out of time for today's Week in the Tackle, mainly because I've got to watch Palace against West Ham, which is just such a bad way to spend a Monday. First, they nearly ruined my Friday. Now they're going to ruin my Monday. I've got things I need to watch on the weekend. I can't watch the telly at the weekend. Monday's a catch-up day for me. I don't know what's happening in Fallout. Will I ever find out? I don't know. I guess if we're... So good. So good. If we get relegated, I guess I'd have plenty of time on my hands. But then again, they're always on Friday in the Championship. We'll work it out together. This Week in the Tackle. That's Brian Dunny Dunseth over there. I'm Tom Rennie. Tim Horsey produced the programme. We'll see you next time.